Hello, everyone out there in the world. Hi, Beyonce. Hey, Lakeisha. Thank you for joining me. If you guys do not know who I am Tiffany Allen. I created Boss on a Budget specifically for new and small nonprofits. And what I do is help people get started. I help them get up and running. And a lot of what I talk about is help with learning how to write grants, but even beyond that, because that's just one small piece of startup. So I started doing these live streams because I want to present different grant opportunities to people who may not know how to find them or may not otherwise know about them. So here we are. So first things first, if you are new and small nonprofit, please subscribe to my channel. I drop a video every single week. I dropped one earlier about whether or not you really need a grant writer. So go ahead and check that video out. And I'm also going to start doing these live streams every Tuesday night. So if you have questions about grants, I'm here. I'm ready to answer your questions. But I basically am going to use this time to walk through 3 grant opportunities. Okay. So where do the grant opportunities come from? I have a mailing list where I send out these opportunities every Friday at 12:30 Eastern Time. And what I'm going to use these streams for is just to walk through them and explain each of those grant opportunities. So if you like to join that list, I am dropping my link to my grants worksheet. That's a worksheet that helps you find grant opportunities for free. So it takes you through certain questions to help you find grant opportunities in your own community, all for free. I tell people all the time, one person got back to me and she said she found 102 potential opportunities using the worksheet alone. So you may not find that many, but you're definitely going to find enough. So I encourage you to download that worksheet and make it work for you. The other thing I want to say before I go through the grant opportunities is I also have a Facebook group. Um, oh, thank you, Lakeisha. I appreciate you too. I have a Facebook group. I just dropped a link to it. So there's about 5,400 people in there now. Every day we talk about how to write grants. What's the grant writing process like for you? There are all kinds of people from all walks of life there. People who are very seasoned in grant writers and people who have never written a grant. And it's a no judgment zone. You can ask any questions, but also in this live stream, you can ask me any questions. I'm happy to do that. So I just wanted to say really quickly for those who are struggling and think like they cannot do it, I want to encourage you with this story. Okay. So I just talked to a woman who started her own school 16 years ago. She's actually in my Facebook group. I hope she doesn't mind me telling the story. I'm not going to say her name, but we just had a conversation and she was kind of discouraged because she felt like, I know I'm doing something wrong. I've been able to learn how to write grants from scratch. I've been pretty successful. I took some classes. I figured it out on my own, but I feel like I'm not doing enough. And I know it's me. I know there's something I'm missing. I'm not writing the right things on my application. And I need your help to figure out what I can do to get better. And what I did say to her to encourage her is that, grant writing in a lot of ways has so much more to do with just the proposal. Okay. So I told her, like, if you think like the reason why you're not winning a lot of grants is because of what you're writing, then take that thought out of your head. So yes, you should make sure that your proposal is organized. You should make sure that your proposal makes sense, that you're making a compelling argument, that people feel like your services are needed, that you're subscribing your programs well. Yes, of course you should be doing that. But grant writing is a lot more about how you build relationships, how you identify your funders, how you know they move or how they tend to fund their organizations. I'm just going to be real with you. There are funders who grant money to people with terrible applications. Okay. They'll give the money because they want to give the money to these people. There are funders who give money to people who have horrible organizations and they'll still give them money. So if you're thinking it's only the proposal is the reason why you're not getting awarded, please don't think that. Keep going, but you have to build relationships and learn your funders and learn how they move. I'm just reading the comments. Erica says, hello, I just joined your group and I'm so excited as someone who wants to transition from grant writing from program management. Awesome, Erica. you are the best person because you know the programs well. You probably have interfaced with the clients, so you know their stories. You're one of the best people to transition to grant writing. So congratulations. So let's get started. I just want to share 3 opportunities that I shared with my mailing list last week, and I'm just going to find the link so I can drop it really quickly. This first grant is a particular grant for people who are dealing with um, justice, the cash bail system, and the incarcerated community, particularly impacted by COVID-19. Okay, so I'm going to jack up the name of this funder, but you can see it in the chat. It's for realist philanthropy. I'm pretty sure that is so wrong, but that is the funder for this. And the name of the grant or the name of the fund is the Spark Justice Fund. And one thing I want to say about this funder is they actually pulled together people who want to give money from different places. So I don't know if you were on my stream last week, but I talked about how JP Morgan Chase kind of has like a repository of grant opportunities from all over the country. So they manage grant funds for different people. So when you go to their website, you're not going to see just one grant. You're going to see multiple grants. And this Borealis Philanthropy, that organization is kind of the same. They're smaller, but they particularly cater to people who are doing things in racial justice and social justice. So one of the funds that they have available is the Spark Justice Fund. And I'm just going to kind of go over what they're looking for. This grant is due on October 20th, okay? And this is particularly for grassroots organizations, and they're very specific about who they fund. So programs that are working to end the cash bail system, transform pretrial justice, and in their words, build power in communities most impacted by incarceration. So that can be a little broad when they're talking about building power in communities impacted by incarceration. I'm pretty sure that that will relate to some low income areas and in particular Black communities because we are severely and disproportionately impacted by incarceration. And this is a rapid response fund. So what does that mean? That means that this is typically a quicker process than normal for them to get the grants to you. They're not going to take a long time to review applications, and there's less kind of red tape for them to get the money to you. So when you see words like rapid response, that's what that means. And you probably have seen a lot of rapid response since COVID-19 hit. So there can be a lot of red tape when you're dealing with foundations. So they did that in response to that, the backlash from a lot of nonprofits saying, hey, we're strapped for money and for cash, and now you want us to go through all this paperwork and all this crap. So that's in direct response to kind of the stress brought on by COVID-19. Other places I've seen like rapid response funds, it's been a while, but probably like 2 years ago when there was an issue with the U.S. locking up people at the border and putting people in cages. When it first started coming out, there were a lot of funds and foundations doing rapid response funds to that as well. So it's usually around trendy events and things that are happening, like current events. That's when you'll see rapid response funds. And let me know if you have any questions because I'm so happy to answer. And just want to talk a little bit more about this Spark Justice Fund in particular. So just a reminder, if you go to Borealis Philanthropy, and if you just put that, so I'll spell it for you so you can see what it looks like. It's just a weird name. It's like Bo Realist. If you check them out, you'll see they have other funds, but I'm just talking about this one in particular. So again, their focus is on grassroots groups in particular, and the scope of the grant is pretty broad. So you can do direct work with getting people out of jail due to COVID-19 and the issues with COVID-19 breaking out in jails, or it can be like broad-ranging campaigns to end cash bail systems. So it doesn't have to be specific to like spending it on people. The money can be used for, broad range campaigns and awareness campaigns around that kind of work. So if you do this kind of work, this is a pretty broad grant that you can go after. Just keep in mind that you do have to have a 501c3 which is typical for most grants, or you can have a fiscal sponsor. So what does that mean? That means you're operating under the umbrella of another organization. So you're using their 501c3 number in order to qualify for a grant. And so there are some nonprofits that will do that for you, or you could possibly hook up with your community foundation and they may fiscally sponsor you as well. And one more thing I just want to say, there is priority consideration, so pay attention to this if you're interested. They will give priority to Black, Indigenous, or people of color led organizations, or organizations led by people who are directly impacted by the legal system, any ongoing campaign. So if you've already had a campaign going kind of prior to this COVID-19, they'll give priority to you because that means you probably have a stronger foothold. And then groups who don't receive a lot of support from national foundations. So this is really is focused on the small grassroots organizations. And they're saying here that the range is between $15,000 and $25,000. Okay. So they're accepting applications until October 20th, and they'll notify groups within 2 to 4 weeks, which is pretty quick. Okay. Beyond Favor says, I want to help inmates once they get out of jail, help veterans, and help single women. So in this particular one, it's helping people get out of jail due to COVID. It's very specific to COVID-19. So I'm not sure. You may be able to pivot and kind of write the proposal that way to say it's in response to COVID-19. There are so many different ways you can splice it. Okay. You say, I don't want to go under anyone. I'm getting my 501c3 nonprofit next year. I think that's a good move. There are definitely challenges to fiscal sponsors because you don't have complete control over everything. They will take a fee, and it's their people. And your work and your programs and projects are not their priority. So you got to be very careful about who you pick and who you want to represent you, right? Because their name is going to be on your applications as well. So it's not just you just picking whoever will let you kind of be under them. You got to be careful about who you pick. So that is, I'm not mad at you, Beyond Favor. I am not mad. So I'm going to go to the next grant opportunity. If you are just joining, thank you. I'm Tiffany with Boss on the Budget. I help new and small nonprofits get up and running. I'm going to be streaming every Tuesday night to just talk about grant opportunities. I already dropped one in particular, and the next one is for people who do international work. So I'm going to drop it here. So unfortunately, this is not for people who serve women and girls in the U.S. This is for organizations that serve people in other countries. And the reason why I chose this one, hey, Shakithia, thank you for joining. The reason why I chose this one for the list is because it can be really difficult to find grant opportunities for international work. And I thought this was an interesting one, so I wanted to just bring it to everyone's attention. So this grant is sponsored by Dining for Women. So it's actually not a foundation, it's a giving circle. So I don't know how many people know what giving circles are, but they're basically groups of people who come together and say, we want to pool our money and we want to choose people to give our money to, basically. So they commit to like sending in money every month, and they pool their resources together and they decide together who they want to fund. So there are a lot of women giving circles. There are giving circles for Black folks. There are giving circles in like different communities and different cultures. So you should check this out, or you should create your own giving circle. If you're a new organization, some people call it tithing to your organization or giving an investment. They give $50 a month to see your organization grow. I encourage you to use that kind of strategy for your organization too. But this Dining for Women is a grant opportunity for organizations that are serving women and girls internationally who are living in extreme poverty. And they have a very specific definition for what they mean. They have an actual number, what they mean. But just to tell you very quickly what they say on their website, they say, we fund projects that foster good health, education, and economic self-sufficiency in developing countries. So they want to educate and inspire people to fight global poverty. So their focus is economic, issues, self-sufficiency, poverty. So if you're doing any of that kind of work specifically for women and girls, this is the opportunity for you, or pass this on to someone else. They typically award grants, which is big amount, usually between 35 to 50,000, which I think is pretty big for a giving circle. But because of COVID-19 and what's going on, they reduced that a little bit. So it's more so in the range of 25,000 to 35,000, which still isn't chump change, especially for people who are new. So just keep that in mind, that they had to reduce the amount that they give out. They're very specific about who they want to give to. So again, you have to be a 501c3 organization. You can have a fiscal sponsor to apply, but your relationship with that fiscal sponsor had to be at least 12 months prior to applying. And then you have to have some kind of, have already done some work in the country that you're working with. And they're saying for a minimum of 3 years. So they're interested in people who've already been doing the work, who have like a track record for doing this work and for knowing the population. One thing I want to point out that I think a lot of new nonprofits should know is that they are looking for your 990 forms. They do not accept the 990 postcard. So if you don't know, if you don't know, I just saw your question, so I'll answer them really quickly after I finish the 990 thing. So 990s are your tax forms. So like for individuals, you do 1040s. You can, nonprofits have the 990 form. So they have to basically report their income and their expenses every year. If you are a small nonprofit and you're not making a lot of money, you do not have to fill out the full 990 form. There's also a 990 easy form for people. I can't remember their amounts right now, but I think it's around 200,000. If you're bringing that much money in, you can fill in the easy form. So they basically make you fill out how you spent your money. And if you have ever filled out a 990 form, it goes into detail about how you spent your money, the biggest projects, the most money you spent in that year, the highest paid executives in your company, because being a tax exempt organization is about transparency. It's supposed to be about transparency. So they don't want to see your postcards, because the postcard, you just have to put one number. And then there's another form, the PF is very quick. You don't have to put a lot of information. They want to see the 990. So this grant is more for people who are more established and have really been doing the work for a long time. And I'll just say quickly that this grant is due October 24th, and they take letters of intent. So they don't want you to fill out a full proposal yet. They want you to send in a letter kind of describing what you want to do, usually 2 or 3 pages. And then if they like you and they want to know more, they'll ask you for a full proposal. So I'll go back to you guys' questions. Are there giving circles in Chicago? Where can we find them? I am almost certain there are giving circles in Chicago, because Chicago is a really big metropolitan area, and for better or worse, has gotten a lot of attention. I would start with your community foundation. Sometimes they may work with the community foundation to manage their funds for them and manage the grant making process for them. So definitely start with your community foundation. But even not just, they may not be called giving circles. You may want to also check out different clubs who have made it their mission to support nonprofits. So if you have like Lions clubs or Rotary clubs in your areas, or the Kiwanis, Kiwanis, they often will donate and invest in community nonprofits. So definitely your community foundation, and then also check into different social clubs that are in your immediate area. I would just Google, honestly, to see if they were in your area. You may also want to check with, similar to what I talked about last week, like JP Morgan Chase. Some banks will manage funds for people, so they may also manage small trust funds or giving circles as well. So those are some ideas for finding giving circles. If we make a giving circle on our own, how much should we ask per person realistically? It really is what you want and what the intention is. So if I were creating a giving circle, I would be clear about what the purpose of it is. Like, where's the money going to go? Because people are going to want to know that. So you can start there. If you know it's to help like a recurring expense, like you may want to buy diapers every month and you know that's $3,000, then I would set my goal based on that $3,000 and say, I want 30 people to give $100 a month. So I would do it that way instead of just doing it like more arbitrary. Um, cool. So I hope that answers your question. All right. So far, if you've just joined me, I've gone through two grant opportunities. The first is for a Spark Justice Fund for people working in the criminal justice arena, specifically around campaigns to end the cash bail system and to help people being released from jail due to COVID. Um, the first company is Borealis Philanthropy. So if you scroll up, you'll see it, but I'll drop the link again. It's this one. Oh, that's cool. I didn't know I could show it on the screen. That is so cool. But of course, I can't copy and paste. I'll copy and paste. I'll come back after the live stream is done. Okay, so this is the last grant that I want to share with you guys. This one is really interesting, and it's much more of a broad focus. So this is a Chatlos Foundation, and I can jack up some words thanks to my mama. So if I'm getting it wrong, forgive me, Chatlos Foundation. But they seem to be a small private foundation. They have broad giving categories. So this particular grant, it's not like a specific grant. You can apply on a rolling basis. So that means you can apply at any time during the year. But I would look at their 990 forms because foundations also have to fill out 990 forms. And I would look at those forms to see how often they give and somehow get a sense of when they give. If you wait too late to the end of the year, money may run out. So I just want you to just keep that in mind. But these are the categories that they give money to. The first one is Bible colleges and seminaries, which I thought was interesting. And they give most of their money, 33% of their money every year towards that. So the range of awards are between $5,000 and $20,000 for Bible colleges and for seminaries. And then for religious causes, they give 30% of their funds to religious causes, and their range is from 5,000 to 15,000. They are not specific about what that means. So again, I would check out the 990 to see who they funded in the past to get a sense of what kind of religious causes. Liberal arts colleges, so they also give 7% of their money to liberal arts colleges. Their range is from 2,500 to 7,500. The next category is medical concerns, but it's not to individuals, it's to organizations. That's 26% of their giving, and that ranges from 5,000 to 15,000. And then the last one, which I think is most relevant to people who are on this live stream, is social concerns. And this is a really big category. So the way they describe it, this encompasses secular community programs which provide direct services such as child welfare, vocational training, prison alternatives, concerns for the aged and disabled, and men, women, and families in crisis. That's really broad. They give a total of 4% of their distribution of funds to social concerns, and the range is 2,000 to 5,000. Now, those are small amounts, but hey, you can start somewhere. They do note on their website that they get a lot of applications. They don't have time to respond to all questions, but it's still worth a look for you to check it out. And especially for new and small nonprofits, the process is probably going to be way less strenuous because the amounts are small and because they're a private foundation. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Every grant process is different. It depends on the funder. It depends on their culture and their style. Usually, if it's a private foundation, it is way less strenuous than, say, a government grant. And if you have followed me from some time, you know that I hate government grants. They are a necessary evil, but they give me a headache. So just keep in mind that if you go after family foundations, it will be a lot easier. Um, just checking the comments out. Hi, Teresa. Thank you for joining. Um, Erica said the pastoral program at your job is fun. That's what a coincidence. Yeah. When I look for grants, I don't often see grants for religious causes. That's what kind of drew my attention to them. And that's why I put them in my email because I thought people would be interested in that. I like to put in opportunities that you normally don't see. So that was interesting to see. Um, do they decide which category you fit into based on how you write the grant, or do you need to make it fit to get a certain grant? I would say if you have to fit to meet the needs of the grant, don't waste your time because they get so many applications, and if it's not squarely within what they're asking for, they're going to boot you out anyway. So don't waste their time. Don't waste your time. Just go after a grant that you really do qualify for. I think people get scared, they get nervous, like, oh, I can't find another grant like this. I got to go after that. But there are other grants. There are grants literally everywhere. You can walk down the street and write a list of potential grants. I wrote a post in the group like 2 weeks ago. I drove down the street and I could come up with 10 opportunities for grants just by looking at the retail stores, looking at the banks, thinking about the utility companies, all that kind of stuff. They all have grant opportunities attached to their businesses. So I would stick to who's in your community, who's invested in your community, as well as other grant opportunities you find about. Erica said they're easy to work with and funding has been easy to apply for each year. That's awesome. Yeah, they seem pretty low key by the website. It seemed like it didn't take much to be able to apply to them because it was just really a no frills website. So I dropped that website. Let me show it. I think that's so cool. You can see my face. That is so cool. So that is the website, and that's also in the comments. So you can do that anytime. So that's it. If you are just joining, I dropped a link to my grants worksheet earlier. If you download this worksheet, you will be able to get the grant opportunities that I talk about delivered to your email the Friday before. So feel free to sign up for that. That worksheet helps you find potential grant opportunities in your community, which is easier than you may think. So Sakithia said, if you're just starting out, I'm sure it's different per state. Where should we start? I always tell people to start with your community foundation. Every jurisdiction just about in the country has a community foundation, and they probably have more than one, depending on what the state is. So I would start there. Some of this is a little iffy because of COVID-19. I'm just going to be real. So a lot of the community foundations got tapped to respond to COVID-19 related issues. But if you are serving people around, needs related to complications from COVID-19, then by all means, reach out to your community foundation and see opportunities. But I always tell people to look in their own communities because funders typically fund based on a connection that they have to a cause. So either their boards have like a heart for the mission, or they have experience in a particular cause. Perfect example is the Dave Thomas Foundation for Adoption. I used to work with them a lot. Dave Thomas was adopted, so he had a foundation based on adoption and providing adoption support around the country. So they typically fund either around a cause or around their community. So if there's an organization that has like a large presence in your community, if a business is headquartered in your community, then I would pay attention to that because they likely have some kind of fund or grant or even like an employee volunteer or employee giving program that you can tap into. And they'll be more invested because you're a community program, you're local, so they get you, they understand you, they can know you. So I would always start local and start with your community foundation. All right. So I'm done. Thank you guys for watching me. I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time on here. I know it's late, but I will be here every Tuesday night going through the grant opportunities that I drop in my mailing list every week. As always, I'm happy to answer any questions about grants. please feel free to join my group. I'm going to put the link, I'm going to show it, see if I can find it. That is the link to my group. So I'm there every day. You can ask me questions there, or you can ask me questions here. Thank you guys for joining me. I wish you the best. Have a great night, and I will see you next week.